I'm going to go through exactly how commercial still life, product, food, drink photographers use a camera like this, why you need a camera like this, but also when you don't need one, because this is not something you need every single day. Although we use it, a lot of this functionality we rarely or never use, but it's really important to understand it because sometimes you won't understand how to get a shot done and you have all these confusing bits of information coming off the internet, and really this here is the answer. Now this camera itself is called the Cambo Actus MV. I've set up a very basic shot here. We're not going for good images, we're going to show you how the whole thing works. It's not particularly focusing on it. We've got a bronze-colour flash and a sunlight on a Cambo light boom stand. That's coming in from the side. But the first thing we need to do is get an empty frame, just to show you what's happening in the room. So it's going to fly through to capture one through this rather long tether cable. And what you can see at the moment is the shot is pitch black. So with all the studio lighting in here, without the flash firing, but with the windows open, the light coming onto me, there's no light in this camera. We're going to turn my flash on and grab a quick test shot. That's the flash firing, and hopefully I've guesstimated the exposure reasonably close, but we'll see. There we go. It's not far off. The white balance is a million miles out. We'll quickly correct that, and then we'll start moving on this shot. Just going to do a grey card. We don't need anything particularly fancy here, like colour profiles. This will serve as well. Now, the first thing we've got here, we've got two products. They're staggered, and we're at f/1600 ISO. I'm just going to focus on this closest one to begin with. There we go. Just set our white balance over here. Pop that back. Okay, so there's our first frame. So what we're hoping to see, brilliant, there we go, is that this is nicely in focus, and I've not done too bad a job. The printing's out of focus. It's very hard to focus on labels like this because the printing's always out. But our friend back here is completely out of focus. So we're currently shooting in, this is in focus, this is out, even at f/16. We're at 1600 watts on this light being a couple of meters away. We can go up a stop, but that's only going to take us to what, f/22. That's not going to fix the depth of field problem. So what we're going to implement here is something called swing. We're going to swing the lens to change the plane of focus, and this will allow us to get both in focus. So what we're going to do is just swing that until it's in, come back to the original one, check that's still in, perfect. And what we'll notice is the composition has now changed. So at the back of the camera, we're going to shift it. So this is swing alone. So this is just getting the Radox bottle at the back in focus. We always check on the big screen, so little viewfinder's not ideal. Almost in, need a little bit more. But we're getting there. So we've gone from very blurry to almost in. But you see the composition's changed a bit as well. But let's just nail this focus first. And then Rob, if you just get a detail shot on this camera here, what you'll see is just how much the lens is thrown to the side. So we're going to come in here, chuck on our focus mask, and you can see now in capture one, both of those are in focus. Now there's other ways to do this, as you know. We can focus stack from here to here, probably be around 40 to 50 frames at 100 megapixels and stitch them all together. That will absolutely work, not a doubt in my mind. But it has its foibles. I'm going to open up live view here now. We'll flip this round. I've never knowingly flipped it the right way. No. Tell I paid attention in class. There we go. So we can now see this. We've got them nicely in place. Let's just change the composition a little bit though. Let's say we'll have this straight onto the camera. We'll have this here, just like that. Let's bring it in. There we go. So they're slightly behind each other. We're just going to correct this swing to put it back to normal again. It always helps to have a good starting point. And the same here. There we go. So we've got the two items together. The camera is parallel to them. And there's a few cool things we can do here. Firstly, we can start to micro adjust the camera. We can come to the right and we can come to the left. That's very useful for fine tuning. We can do that at the front and at the back. and it has a slightly different effect. So as you see all the way over here, we can see the word Radox very clearly at the back. And as we start to do this, you'll notice it starts to obscure it, only slightly, but these slight movements can make a big difference in certain shots. If the text is slightly hidden, but you've got the exact relationship of items that you want, this can help. So let's pop these back to 0 again. Let's get the camera back to where it started. We also have rise and fall. So for example, you might want to come down really low to get a low down angle, but you still want to be straight on with the camera. This way we can lift it up like this. We've got that hero angle, so it still looks heroic and distorted and very tall on the screen, but we've still got straight lines. It might be that you want to go for a bit more of a hero angle, and then you're going to adjust this back down again. But you need to fix the distortion. So you want the heroic angle, but without the distortion. At this point, we can tilt the back of the lens, and you'll see on the screen those Radox bottles are now straightening up, even though we're shooting low and high. So we have the hero angle without the problems of the converging lines. This is very useful. This we use a lot. Any shoot where we're sort of doing hero products, every client wants that heroic staring up into the product, but what they don't want are the disappearing lines, the converging lines, the distortion, because when they have an advert and they put text behind it, it looks really bad. This is how you fix that problem. This is how you take a hero shot and make it still work with text. Of course, sometimes you want those extreme converging lines where it looks like it's, you're looking straight up at the Empire State Building, but a lot of the times they want the product to look perfect because someone spent a lot of time and millions of pounds designing a label for it to be absolutely perfect. They don't want it distorting. So here we've got looking up hero angle, but without it falling down. A very useful shot. We then, especially with drinks, so if you imagine that all of a sudden this is a drink, they want a straight on shot of the drink, but they also want to see inside the drink. So in this case, it'll be the tops of the bottle. So we make it so you can see the tops of the bottle from the camera angle, and then we'll adjust it here. So now we're looking straight on, but you can see the top of the cap. So you might have a pint of Guinness here with a straight on shot, but someone's done a clove on top of it and they want to see that. And that's a really important thing that we do here. It's a straight on shot, but seeing over the top. Again, very good. And also if we're going up high, we can look down on our product from the angle of the camera. And again, we can fix the converging lines with our tilt. And then we'll do a little bit more of this. There we go. So now we're looking down, but we've got straight bottles. You might not like the look of this, but if a client says, can we have a shot looking down at 45 degrees? We want to see the top of the bottle and we want to see the bottom of it with straight lines. This is what you do. Obviously, as photographers, sometimes we just go, well, do you know what? You can't have that because it doesn't work. And then we're going to have to fix the focus at the front as well, using a bit of this. There we go. This is where it gets really tricky. There we go. So we've got them both in focus here. We're missing a bit at the top and a bit at the bottom. So again, we can start to use the tilt on both of these to get it in. Now what I've got here is an extreme angle. We're at 15 tilt here. It's very unlikely we're going to get the whole thing in focus. So we would stop down to f22, but this here is not possible. This amount of focal distortion is not possible on a normal camera or with a tilt shift lens. If this was a tilt shift lens, if we just zero this back again to where it was, the options you'll have generally, put this to 0, you will have rise and fall here, which is going up and going down, very good. You will have a bit of tilt in both directions, and you'll have a bit of swing in both directions as well. And that is it. It's good and it has its place. A tilt shift lens is great if you need to be fast, lightweight and handheld, but if you need full control, this is what you need. And this is also, although it looks like a big camera, this is quite small in terms of the actual big technical cameras you can get. This is kind of like a portable version of it. But what this adds is movements to the back. So yes, we can do the cool depth of field tricks at the front, but we can also do perspective correction from the rear. We can also do rise and fall from the rear. We can do shift either side from the front and rear to really control the perspective. And some of the things it allows you to do are as follows. So a very common shot that we have to do is the 45-degree shot. Sometimes it'll be loads of products layered out, sometimes it'll be a single item. And again, the problem is you focus at the front of this item and the back's out of focus. You can see clearly it's not all in focus. You focus at the back and the front's out of focus. Of course, you can focus stack this, but that doesn't fix all of the issues. The first thing I would generally do if I was doing a shot like this, I would focus on the front, I would tilt the lens until we get to a point where the entire plane of focus is in, just that lens hood a bit, which is creeping in. Readjust the focus, there we go. And then I'd also want to correct the perspective. So I'd start to move the tilt. So if we go this way, you see we're starting to straighten it out. So we need to get to the right amount. And again, you can get it perfectly correct, but perfectly correct is not always good. So what we're often looking to do is choose it to look sort of a natural way. Like we're coming down at 45 degrees already. So we're going to sort of tilt at the front, tilt at the back, readjust the focus until it's in, and then we can get a lovely shot. Let's just zoom in on that. Where we can see here the whole bottle is in focus front to back and we're not getting the distorted lines. And again, you can do part of this with a tilt shift, you can do some of it with focus stacking, and you can do some of it in post, but none of them give you the perfect shot like this. This is how you get it exactly right. And this is the same for swing. If you need to swing, you can correct the perspective as well, rise and fall. All of these different things. There are so many different ways you can utilize them. And this is not all of them. This is not everything. There's, and I'm sure some of you know much more than I do about these sorts of cameras. We use the tip of the iceberg of this equipment. Despite all the kit in here, I'm not an overly technical photographer. I tend to focus on the creative side. So if I have said something wrong, pop it in the comments below. We'll pin it to the top and make sure everyone knows. So without going into excessive detail of every single option, just to quickly recap on this camera, we have the option to focus, change image size using the two pillars, or standards as they're known. We can get extremely macro and almost to infinity. We can change the plane of focus and adjust the perspective to go with that, and adjust the composition as well to correct for it. Gives you a whole world of different things. One of the times this is really useful is if we need a great depth of field, but we need to freeze motion. That is when focus stacking just isn't an option. So doing this allows us to have f5.6 and get a whole bottle in focus front to back. You know, we can do hero angles and get the whole bottle in focus as well without being at like f22 and focus stacking a million shots in a macro. Because being low down and looking up, on a standard camera, the depth of field is just useless, but this really gives you those extra options. Now, I get a lot of questions about this. This is a Mamiya 6x7cm lens. This is a Fuji sensor. It is way bigger than that. So if you're looking at the live view right now, if I move to the extremities, that's all the way one side, all the way the other side, no vignetting at all. So as we go down, I've just taken the lens hood off because this does obscure it a little bit. Try and find the edge of the actual image circle. No. Let's go the other way. So just here, at the absolute extreme, we're losing a very small amount at the top of the frame. I think that might be the bellows. We could probably get some bigger bellows on there. But with a standard like Canon tilt shift lens, there's loads of points in the image when you're moving it around. You get massive vignetting, massive softness. This barely has any. I've never had a shot that I've done in real life where we've had any issues with the image circle. You can reach the limits of it, but of course, you could buy the Cambo 90mm lens, which has a greater image circle, I believe, and is sharper than this. It's probably my next purchase lens-wise is the Cambo. I think it's called like an Actar or something like that. It's a much smaller lens as well, which I kind of like the idea of because I don't want massive clunky kit everywhere. These gold rings here are just to hold the aperture in place. Somebody was saying you can just do something else, but you can, but for my workflow, it doesn't work because sometimes you need to undo it whilst it's in an awkward place. One of my patrons made this for me. I'll try and find his details. He did have them for sale on Etsy. It'll be a Mamiya RZ lens, something or other. but I'm not sure if he's still doing it, so I'll ask him and see, because I know a lot of people have bought these lenses since, and they're like, where do we get them? Great bit of kit. But yes, this is the camera in a nutshell. For a lot of stuff we're shooting next week, we won't need any of those movements. We'll just focus forwards and backwards, and that's fine. It has great benefits of having the aperture stop down here and not being an automatic electronic aperture. If we're doing stop motion, we get no flickering, which is great. We're doing a lot of stop motion next week. But then the week after, we're shooting hero products, and this camera will be distorted into all different kinds of ways. And there's a lot of savings to be made as well, because if we do it like this in camera, it saves on the retouching cost. And the retouching is very expensive because there's so much of it, whereas this here, compared to the retouching cost, is very cheap. You know, and also it's a one-time purchase. Every job has its own retouching cost. It's also better image quality than focus stacking, because focus stacking has a look and it looks focus stacked. I can guarantee you over the course of a whole day shooting, you'll mess up at least one focus stack. There'll be one where you've got a gap in it somewhere and you've got to then clone stuff in, and it's a nightmare. So there we go. That is the Cambo camera, and that is why we use it.